Hi, everyone. My name is Ben Wright, human cartoonist extraordinaire, and welcome to another creator interview for Universal Flaws of Robotics. For those of you who are new to this group, let me let you know what we're doing. We currently have a Kickstarter running for a comics anthology all about automata. You can find information about that in the link scrolling across the bottom. This is an incredible project. We have 19 stories that range from humor to transhumanist horror. And with me today, we have Alex Washburn. Alex is a 2020 graduate of the Center for Cartoon Studies and has participated in 2 of our anthologies so far. He was in What the Gnomes Know and is now providing the story Emerald Soda. How you doing today, Alex?
Good. How are you doing, Ben? And hello, everybody who is watching.
I am doing great. I am in full Kickstarter mode.
Let's go. Let's go.
That's right. But yeah, you put together one of the cuter stories in the anthology, which I appreciate as someone who had to read all the stories in the anthology. And I also feel like you went with one of the more creative concepts for the world you set up. Like you did a lot of world building in particular. And I'm curious what inspired you to make the story you did.
So when I found out that the theme was about robots, I basically thought about, okay, what are robots to me? What is cool about them? What do I like about the way they look? I think I was kind of starting to try to think about what should the characters look like? What should the scenery look like? Because what exactly am I going to be drawing? And I kind of thought oh, I actually kind of like some of that sci-fi Egyptian aesthetic that I've seen here and there, and I kind of wanted to do something like that. So I made my characters based off of whatchamacallits, Anubis.
Yeah.
The word is escaping my head.
Jackal?
The breed of dog. Jackal, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Jackal. Yeah, based them off of that, and that's kind of how I came up with the whole Egyptian, sci-fi Egyptian aesthetic. I also kind of was approaching it from a color perspective as well. I was kind of thinking about a desert, and I thought about colors like midnight blue and dirty gold, and I thought that would be an interesting color palette to work with for this.
It definitely is. Let me show a little bit of that color palette. While I'm bringing that up, we've got Patrick in the chat saying hi.
Oh, hi, Patrick. Thanks for coming.
But yeah, your art looks great in this. I'm trying to remember because I remember this coming up in your interview for the previous anthology. Do you normally work digitally, or are you normally traditional?
It's actually a bit of both. I normally do traditional when it comes to the pencils and the inks, at least so far. That's what I have done. But when it comes to toning, shading, coloring, that has all been digital so far.
Makes sense. But yeah, this is some of the midnight blue stuff you were talking about. This is the clip we've been showing everywhere. And I do like that you did kind of keep it to a limited palette because that orange shows up during the day scenes and things like that. And I think it came out like really fun and really interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. I actually need to bring up a bigger version of this page just because it's the panel layout on here is a lot of fun. I'm always a sucker for weird panel layouts and like going against the normal version of the grid. And that seems like something you played with a bit on this one.
Yeah, I've been with this comic and some of my projects after this one, I've been playing a lot with panel layouts because I really enjoy good variety in panel layouts. They make comics so much fun to read. I kind of blame that on Akira Toriyama influencing me because he was always wonderful with the panel layouts in his comics. So I think that's kind of some of that starting to seep into my work.
We've got another hello in the chat.
Oh, hello, Rich. Thank you for coming. Good to see you here.
But yeah, it's funny because one of the things that I always tend to think about with manga in particular is I feel like a lot of the manga that's come over to the US actually has unnecessarily complicated panel layouts that
Mm,
sometimes get in the way of readability. It's been a long
mm.
time since I went through the Dragon Ball manga, but I do remember that one actually being pretty clear while still having a lot of the like power breaking the panels and stuff.
Yeah, Akira Toriyama's panel layouts. He was always a little bit of fun history. He did advertisements before he got into comics, so he was always focusing on clarity a lot. So I think that's kind of why his panel layouts flow so smoothly. They read so nicely and probably isn't as like stiff or as structured as some like other manga can be at times.
Yeah, I definitely could get that. And advertising is one of those things that people tend to poo-poo, but it's great for cartoonists, like learning
Yeah,
the how to do visual communication. Did you guys have the assignment when you were at
absolutely.
CCS of finding bad advertising?
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
That was interesting.
yeah. One of the ones I always think about from that, I brought in what looked like a normal car ad, but the slogan on it said, because no one ever reminisces about driving a Chevrolet or whatever the car was. I can't remember what it was, but they were saying that about their competitor. Like it was supposed to be a diss ad. But I brought this up and pointed out
Oh,
the biggest name on this ad is your competitor. Anyone looking at it quickly is going to think this is an ad for your competitor.
whoops.
Yeah. And it's just like the design otherwise looks fine, but it completely misses the message.
Yeah,
So like
that's
that
not
kind
gonna
of thing can
work.
be very useful for people to study.
Totally, it's good to know.
Yeah. Now I'm looking over some Dragon Ball manga stuff just to check, just to remind myself. And man, he did
Yeah.
foreshortening well.
Oh my
All
gosh,
these dynamic
I am
shots.
so jealous of his foreshortening skills. Granted, I know he did that for like years and years and years and years,
Oh yeah,
but just mwah, love it.
yeah. Good directionality stuff like that. So yeah, you could do worse than studying Akira Toriyama for this kind of thing. We've got a question in the chat. What kind of comics or manga did you grow up with that you feel inspires you today in your present work, besides Akira
um,
Toriyama?
Besides Akira Toriyama is definitely like the big one for me. But besides him, oh, that's a good question. I do really like Naoko Takeuchi, who did Sailor Moon. I really loved
Hmm.
her works a lot because, while my own work doesn't really look anything like Takeuchi's works, I was always very inspired by her very like painterly looking style of Sailor Moon, and there's just something very nice and comfortable looking about reading that. I feel so I feel like there was kind of a bit of this like atmosphere to it that I really appreciated. And I guess the closest I am to like going for like a painterly look might be the digital painting, I guess. Um, but yeah, I generally was inspired most by her, by the feel of it. And I guess the general story of Sailor Moon and how a bunch of heroes kind of like come together, which was also inspired by the Super Sentai franchise about different kinds of people coming together in solidarity to work together and stop evil, basically.
I could also kind of like it's definitely different, but I could kind of see some of the expression work and stuff like that from Sailor Moon
Oh,
in how
okay.
you handle character expressions and things like that.
Oh,
Like there's
that's
a little bit of
interesting.
like the exaggerated cute and happy a little bit that is kind of classic to that style.
I can kind of see that actually, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so one of the things I'm curious about. So the basic premise of your story is it is one of these Anubis style robots that is going on the
Mhm.
desert to find an oasis full of robot fuel, which is in fact soda.
Yes.
I'm
Melon
curious
soda.
what prompted melon soda to be the typical fuel.
So I really, really love melon soda. It's probably one of my favorite drinks ever. And I don't get to always drink it. It's usually something I drink when I go to Japan, or if I can find any place that's just selling it here in the States, which isn't a normal thing to run into. Um, but it can't be any melon soda. It has to be the green kind. The clear stuff doesn't count. Um,
So less of a ramen fan.
I love ramen a lot.
Yeah.
Definitely no diss towards ramen, but melon soda. It's not every day you get like a very beautiful green soda. And well, in regards to my comic, this kind of goes back to the color palette thing. I was thinking about the midnight blue and the dirty gold color palette, and I also kind of thought about like what is something that is rare in the desert, something that's rare and beautiful and is just absolutely wonderful. And Patrick, melon facade. I remember that game. um yes, there was a video game called Facade many, many years ago, and you cannot say the word melon because then it is game over. That is the gist of it.
I need to look this up. I stream games sometimes. This sounds like a very fun thing to do.
It's interesting. You know what? I'll tell you more in a minute. Let me finish on
Okay.
my point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought green looked like a really beautiful, rare color that I would always be very happy to see in a desert. I've never really been in a desert in real life, other than like a couple of times in like Arizona and whatnot. Um, but usually when I think of like what do I want during a hot day, and I thought like, oh, melon soda would be really nice, and the thought of it kind of like glistening like an emerald, hence the title, I started to think like, oh, emerald soda must be the most precious thing ever in a desert, is kind of what I thought. And then that just kind of led into me going like, you know what? This is officially the fuel for robots in this story.
Yeah. There's a very funny moment later on I'm going to show that kind of is a good subversion of expectations moment. But like out on the search for fuel, and you find an oil well, which should be perfect for robots. I like also that there's some discussion of it almost as if it's a dietary restriction, or like I guess the comparison comes to my mind is a gluten intolerance or things like that.
Mhm.
Like I can't have oil, I must have soda.
Yeah, so the whole aspect of like no oil kind
Mhm.
of was a result of I think it was like kind of like a result of me wanting to add kind of a humanistic aspect to robots, because I know robot stories, a lot of them typically tend to ask, what does it mean to be a robot? What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to exist, you know? And
Just real quick because this cracks me up. I was in Arizona once, but then I saw a scorpion and a giant spider and left right away, paranoid that they were following me home.
oh
That
no.
actually feels like it fits the story a little bit with the land shark.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, I thankfully didn't run into any scorpions or giant spiders, but I was told that they were out there. So I made sure not to get too far away from my car while I was there. This was during a family road trip.
Yeah, I get what
Um
you mean. I do also want to throw this out there. This was back when we were talking about artists, and I didn't have a chance to bring it up, but did bring up. I know personally some things I read or just look at, I'm so amazed I have to pick up a pencil right away. I know that feeling. That's reading Junji
yeah.
Ito for me.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's definitely me with Akira Toriyama. And certainly not limited to Akira Toriyama, just anything really. I think I kind of have this thing where I go, oh, that's a nice face, or that's a really nice expression. I want to draw something like that now. And I think that's kind of one of my biggest motivations to sitting down and drawing.
Getting back to the humanizing of the robots, I did really
Right.
like that. Well, no, I'm so I did the detraction because I kept bringing up stuff from the chat. Keep
Oh,
posting
of
stuff in
course,
chat.
no
We love it.
problem. Heck yeah.
But I do like. I find it interesting that your robots in this can have siblings and stuff like that. Uh, and I found it interesting because in most stories, if they do that kind of sibling dynamic with robots, it's they're in the same, they were manufactured around the same time or at the same place and stuff like that. It's usually
Mhm.
very mechanical, and you don't even think about that reading the story. It's just like, yeah, you've got a sister, you got a sister robot. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, in terms of like the humanistic aspect of it, yeah, it was kind of like they're siblings. That's just kind of how it works in this world. And I also wanted to add things like, oh, they have taste buds or tongue sensors, as they kind of call it. And I think what I wanted to get out of my robots was hopefully a sense of relatability. Like I wanted them to feel like people, even though they were probably like fully mechanical. That was kind of the general gist I was getting from it all. And I think that's what led into the whole like, ew, oil is gross aspect with some of the characters.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to think about because you do have a scene towards the beginning where one of the robots is injured, and there's a reference to leaking oil. So in theory, if the robots that do drink oil are they drinking blood? Is that basically what it is?
That's a very good question.
Yeah,
I think that begs the question of do robots see oil as blood? Because we as humans don't drink blood.
yeah, not usually.
Yeah, not usually. We drink water. I guess
Yeah.
we're made up of water.
It is kind of fun also to think about the idea of like are they converting the soda into oil if there's oil in there like we convert like water is one of the ingredients when we're making blood and stuff like that.
Yeah, I
Wait,
think like I kind of wanted to express, hey, humans are made of water and we drink water. Yeah.
a fair point.
Yeah, I think one of the things I kind of wanted to hopefully get across was that emerald soda isn't as common as the robots probably wish it was because you have to trek through the desert to find it. It's
Yeah.
like a whole dangerous ordeal out there. And if you don't find any, and well, assuming you haven't died out there in the desert, well, better settle for some oil, some crude oil.
I also love the idea that they're looking for an entire oasis full of soda. Uh, just because it's fun, like it does make me think of questions, but they're all fun questions. Like
Yeah.
I can absolutely
Oh,
suspend my
wonderful.
disbelief and enjoy all this, but it also makes me go, is it carbonated? Like, are you somehow having this entire lake that is maintaining carbonation?
Maybe. Oh, it absolutely is. It is all carbonated.
It's kind of a fun idea. Like, you just come across it and just bubbling from underneath.
Better go in there with like a science jacket and just start like trying to figure out how all this works.
Yeah. I start wondering, like,
Um,
are there like emeralds? Are there soda wells and like soda geyser? That would be a good thing.
oh my gosh, I want to see this now. I think I do remember when I was writing this comic, I kind of love the mental image of an oil operation doubling as a robot part. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
I actually really like that idea too.
Yes, yes. This needs to be a thing. Yeah, like what I know, like when I was writing the script to this comic, I was kind of hoping I could explore more of how this world works, but since this had to be done in 12 pages, I had to kind of really keep it concise. So I will leave a lot of it up to everyone's imaginations, unless a sequel ever happens.
Yeah. Well, hey, once we do have requirements for our participants to give us 6 months exclusivity on it because we got to sell the
Mhm.
book.
Heck
But
yeah.
once that's entirely up, you could just make stories on your own all you want.
True, true.
Got a new participant, Dat Chimera. The way you're humanizing these robots is fascinating, using details like family structure, drinking soda. You don't really see these things used when trying to blur the line between humans and robots. It's kind of true.
Also,
Like,
hi, Dak Meyer. Bleh. Hi, Dak. I can't speak. Ugh.
it's
Chimera.
all good.
Bah.
There you go.
Thanks for coming.
But yeah, it's one of those things that you definitely don't see much, especially since a lot of robot stories tend to focus more on the transhumanism of it.
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
how are robots different from people, but how can they also relate? That kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
which is really fascinating, and I love that. I guess I just really wanted to go for something that wouldn't make me feel cold and metally, I guess, maybe?
I I know what you mean. Like, that feels like this is one of the main stories where I feel like it doesn't cover what I just said, and that's kind of nice. Like, you want variety in
Yeah.
anthologies.
Yeah, thank you.
Um,
Also, hi, Lark.
but yeah, it really is fun just seeing how different it is. One of the things that I have also been bringing up, since it's a hot button issue with creators, especially right
Of
now,
course.
um, your story doesn't dive particularly into AI. It's focusing more on robots as robots and things like that. But
Mhm.
generative AI has been a pretty big conversation piece lately, and I'm
Yeah.
curious what your thoughts are on it.
Um, so I feel like the recent AI stuff is kinda just a buzzword. Um, because I don't really think it's real AI. It doesn't really think, it just follows patterns from a set data pool, aka the internet.
Mhm.
So I don't really see that as real AI despite the fancy wording of it, I
Yeah,
feel. I feel it's just a really, really fancy image generator. So I don't feel like it's really comparable to the way fiction portrays artificial intelligence because artificial intelligence in a lot of fiction, you're kind of led to believe that they are so advanced that they have achieved sentience of their own. And I feel what we have been blowing up on the internet lately isn't really that at all. I feel it's just another tech buzzword for corporations.
yeah. Kirby agrees with you.
Yeah,
I agree with
it
you too.
isn't actually intelligent. It's not very intelligent.
It
Yeah.
it it's why I've been trying to make a point to specify generative AI because, like,
Mm,
obviously we talk a little bit about sci-fi AI in our various stories, and it's important to be able to make the distinction between the two. But yeah, I pretty much agree with
yeah.
you. One thing I also want to let the audience know,
Mhm.
despite the topic of this anthology, we did have a rule like no generative AI could be used in the making of these stories. So everything you get is 100% human made.
Hells yeah.
Yeah, some of us made it on computers, but you know what I mean. We did not
That's
cheat.
different. That's different.
Yeah.
We poured our
But
souls into this.
absolutely. So you're not particularly worried about what the generative AI will do to the industry long term.
I am worried-ish. Mainly because I feel it is causing a lot of spam. I feel it has made the internet a lot less fun, particularly for artists. So I do not appreciate the damage it has caused. Um, I don't think it will replace artists at all, but it has harmed a lot of artists, and yeah, I don't appreciate that at
Yeah.
all, and I hope we'll get to grow out of that somehow. I mean, corporations, they love their new shiny toys, so unfortunately, they're gonna get in the way. So here's hoping the next handful of years we can finally work our way and crawl out of this hole.
Yeah. Uh, Rich but not wealthy does bring up. I think AI shouldn't replace humans for many reasons. First, it's not equipped to do so and just shouldn't replace creativity through experience in a human soul, but they are fine to
Mm,
exist. That last part I always find interesting because my suspicion is this is going to get regulated at some point, and then we're going to start
mhm.
getting tools that might actually help artists more than hurt them. That's my hope anyway. Um,
Yeah, I get
Also,
that.
I like Kirby's line: "Artists put their souls into their art, and I put my soul into AI users."
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you for making the distinction between generative AI. I think that AI overall has a lot of potential to be a great tool for artists, but I do not know how generative AI has been used. Yeah, it's definitely been interesting, and I know that there's another. I think another SAG-AFTRA strike is starting to happen,
Yeah, I
specifically for
heard
the video
about
game
that.
industry,
Mhm.
because they're worried about that and want provisions to take care of it.
Yeah.
And it's definitely been an interesting thing to see. Like the film industry is very worried about things like extras disappearing because it's cheaper to fake generate something. We've got
Yeah,
Kelsey in the chat too. Hey,
totally.
Kelsey.
Hi, Kelsey.
But yeah, and it's there is definitely a rise to deal with this stuff. I won't go too much
Mm.
more into this because it didn't end up having anything to do with your story, but it is a topic I've been bringing up with everybody.
It's an important topic and should be talked about, definitely,
Yeah.
because all us
Um,
artists are at stake.
It is absolutely true. It's funny because I do know of an anthology that uh, I think I don't remember its exact name, but it was along the lines of no AI was used in the making of this. And one
Mhm.
of the other things they said was you have to make it. I think it was you can't have digital copies of this on the internet at all. We are only selling physical copies in person because they said if you post this anywhere on the internet, that's eventually going to end up in an AI. So it's kind of scary thinking
Mm.
about how all that gets worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh,
I used to use Pinterest as a place to find references, and now Pinterest is chock full of AI generative imagery, and AI does not know how human body proportions work, or lighting for that matter. Everything is smooth and shiny and radiant.
all right, let's get circled back to talk a little bit more about Emerald Soda.
Yeah.
Uh, I find it also interesting just how overwhelmingly positive the story is. I don't think there's an unpleasant interaction in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's similar to the case with your previous story. Um, it feels like a lot of your work just has a big boost positivity built into it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the result of me feeling like we live in a really terrifying world, and I guess the way I pour myself into my stories and craft my stories, I'm very interested in how people can deal with the terrifying aspects that are ailing them in this world.
So even when there's a challenge, it's something that they're able to get through and they're able to be hopeful. They're able to persevere even in the face of in your previous story potentially turning to stone and
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I do want to
I
highlight one.
mhm.
Sorry, I do want to highlight one quick comment from Kelsey. Apparently, there's a trend now of making a logo saying "Made by Human Intelligence." I love that. Maybe we slip that in the book somewhere.
Oh my gosh. That would actually be pretty funny.
Yeah, and we also have. I think that we're currently in an AI bubble, but I can't help but feel like it will pop before we standardize a form of ethics. Oh, we'll see what happens.
Hmm, it's possible, yeah.
Here's a question. I'm a diabetic. Will I be able to read Emerald Soda without it raising my blood sugar? No promises. It's a very sweet story.
Yeah, what he said.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, Diet Emerald Soda has aspartame. I don't know if that will do what that will do specifically, but it might be worth checking out.
Gosh, make a diet version of the comic.
It's only 6 pages long. Uh, That would actually be really funny. Just Diet Emerald Soda, and we cut out every other page.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, I wanted to say before
Mhm.
about the Oasis, the melon soda Oasis. I kinda came up with that concept as a part of the whole, like, finding something rare and beautiful out in the desert, something refreshing. So, along with the melon soda, I thought, well, Oasis, like, are beautiful if you're trekking through a desert, and when you find them, you're probably parched and you want a nice drink.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I think I had internet troubles.
Oh,
I don't know if I can you hear me? Hello?
yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. My image, just skipped. But, you were saying something about it being, finding something beautiful in the desert?
Yeah, I felt like oases were kind of like finding something rare and beautiful in the desert. And when you find one, you are parched and you want a nice drink. Also, the palm trees, they're green, so that's beautiful too.
Yeah, that's funny to think about. Those trees are clearly fed by soda also. Like, this goes into my previous concerns. Um, Also, come to think of it, everything in this setting is a robot, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
you
that's
you
kind of what I went for. Yeah.
yeah, I was just thinking about it because I'd shown the land sharks briefly before, and they have, like, a joint thing right here, so they're
Mhm.
clearly a robot. Now I'm wondering if the trees are mechanical.
So, one of the ideas that didn't make it into the comic, I was originally going to make a character where the desert was an entire sentient robot.
That's a fun idea. That is a very fun idea. I like that a lot.
Nice. So, yeah, I
It's like
couldn't fit that into the 12 pages, so, I'll leave the desert up to your imagination as a result.
yeah, but that is definitely an idea I could see happening. It's kind of fun, also just you have a very wavy mountainous desert, and it's fun to just imagine the whole thing rising up at some point.
Thank you.
But yeah, it's I'm also interested in going back and talking a little bit about the color palette. Because, like, one of
Mhm,
the things that is often a trap people fall into, especially when they're working digitally, is
mhm.
using a ton of colors because you have access to all the colors. And you did a
Yeah.
very good job of of limiting the colors per page.
Oh, thank you.
And I am curious, like, how was that? Is that just how you normally do your color? Is it something that you had to put a lot of thought in? Was it specific to this project how you did it?
So color is still actually fairly new to me, but in terms of comics, because this is literally the second or third colored comic I've ever done. Gnome Armor from where the What the Gnomes Know was the one I did before. And well, I've always had a love for color before I got into comics. I was a painter before I started comicking. I painted in acrylics and I did a lot of abstract paintings. I love color a lot. So I've always been kind of playing around with it. It wasn't until in recent years where I really have started trying to train my eye to like balance out hues and values. So I still think it's a working process, but with Emerald Soda, I felt it would have been an interesting experiment for me to try doing a more limited color palette because I felt pretty strongly about doing something with midnight blue and dirty gold and emerald green. And I think that's what drove me a lot to paint this comic.
Uh, it is kind of funny because, like, there are several of those that are close to being complementary colors. Plus, you throw purple in there in a lot of stuff. But I am curious with that painting. Have you ever tried making a painted comic, like using acrylics or anything like that?
Not intentionally, but if you saw some of my paintings from my college days, you probably will notice some precursor comic aspects in some of the paintings I did because in some of my paintings, I did draw some whimsical looking faces on them. Depending on who you ask, not everyone really liked them, but it kind of turned into like a noticeable thing in my paintings as a result. So those were probably some early signs that I was eventually gonna get into comics eventually.
Yeah, it's always funny when you see cartoonists making uh, different types of art, and like I remember I took an acrylic class while I was
Hmm.
living in White River Junction at a local place, and one of the things that they had, it was an intro to acrylics because I didn't come from an art background, so I was trying to catch up in some ways.
Yeah.
And they said, bring in a simple picture that you're going to paint. And in my head, like, what's a simple picture? So I brought in a photo of the New York skyline that my dad took, and
Oh.
it was like a high angle, lots of buildings, kind of complicated. And the teacher looked and was like, all right, whatever. And then came back a few minutes later and I'd already sketched out the entire layout because you're a cartoonist. You learn to do this stuff fast. Um, and was like, oh, okay, you're good. Um,
Awesome. That's
the paint part,
amazing.
that was a little bit to figure out, but the layout, yeah,
Hmm.
I could do that because comics.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta figure out when you try out different mediums, see how they
Yeah.
work, tame the beast within them.
So you'd been doing acrylic back in the day, and now your
Mhm.
comics are. You mentioned pencils are still traditional, but line art, color, all that is fully digital. Are you deliberately moving more in that direction, or do you think that you'll still be going back and doing traditional stuff?
The line work is actually traditional, the inking. Um,
Really?
yeah, the the toning and the coloring is digital, yeah, and the shading. Um, but yeah, the line work is
You
traditional.
thresholded
I
that well.
thanks. Um, trying to trying to scan the inks and then trying to like edit them all is definitely challenging in its own right because it can be kind of unruly. Um, but for me, it's been very good practice, and it feels very satisfying to ink your works and to have kind of like a physical, like original work of it. It just feels fun to see it come together. Will I eventually switch to purely digital? The thought has crossed my mind several times. I think that's something I do want to try out eventually because I have done some purely digital works before, and that feels really nice in its own right. I love how digital lines can look, and it just feels really fun to draw in general. So I do think that's something I will probably give a shot sometime in the future. Whether if I stick to that or not, well, we'll see.
Absolutely. And it is interesting that the main thing you use digital for then was color because there's a lot of uh, color experimentation that I'm seeing that mostly you do with digital stuff. I'm looking at some of the glow effects, like you did a subtle glow around the eyes at night. All
Hmm.
the stars have a glow and a like little halo around them. Uh, all of which is, tricks that you technically can do with an airbrush, but most people don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have experimented some with traditional coloring like gouache, and I remember I enjoyed using some gouache for like a comic I did way back during my CCS days, and I've enjoyed some what you call it, watercolors as well. And I did try some Copics one time. I kind of burned through those really fast. I did not really settle on any medium for coloring at the time yet. Maybe I will attempt them again. I do remember there was one time where I did use Copics for a drawing that I spent a really long time on, and then I scanned it, and for some reason, all the colors came out muddy, and that really discouraged me from doing color for a while.
Yeah, that's one of the scary things with working traditional is there's so much stuff that can happen when you do eventually have to digitize it, which there's almost no way to make reproducible comics without them being digitized at some point.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and with color in particular, that gets dicey because not only do you have to scan it, then later you have to print it. Not all colors that you painted are reproducible in print. Yada yada yada.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the reason why I ended up digitally coloring was just simply because it just kind of became the comfortable way for me to do it. So I've just been practicing with that ever since. There's also the fact that I took a whole bunch of art classes, which was about digital coloring as well. So that probably added to that too.
Yeah, that is one of the things that is fun about Center for Cartoon Studies is it sounds like you did what I did and just took it as an excuse to do a lot of different experimentation.
Yeah, I think part of what scared me about traditional coloring was, oh, I have to put water and this messy color stuff on my comics, which I spent so much time penciling and inking, and I could potentially ruin them. So I think I just kind of like um wussed out a bit from it all. I think
Yeah,
I do want to at some point practice and experiment with traditional coloring again at some point and see what happens. Maybe I can find something I personally really like and vibe with, which I have
yeah.
not yet, but maybe someday.
I mean, you mentioned gouache. I can personally vouch for watercolor being great in comics. We have at
Mhm.
least, off the top of my head, we have at least two watercolor comics in this one. Uh,
Oh.
yeah, both Angela Boyle and Catalina Ruffin used watercolors for
Oh my
theirs.
gosh. Yeah, their
Yeah,
works are mwah, gorgeous.
yeah.
Like,
I love whenever they do stuff, and I've definitely done digital watercolor comics. I did a watercolor 24-hour comic once because I'm a psychopath. Um,
oh my no.
it worked. I got it done in time,
Well,
but
good job.
it was a little nuts. But yeah,
I bet.
it's fun because it's one of the things I know I've talked to my dad about because I've mentioned at some point I want to take an oil painting class. I want to just learn how oil painting works,
Oh,
right? Like, there's a
I've
reason I'm not doing it on my own because there's enough involved that I want to have at least an intro class. And
yeah.
my dad is always like, "You're never going to use that for comics. What's that going to be good for?" Like, because he comes from the sciences and
Mhm,
is very much you specialize and get really good in your specialization.
mhm.
Uh, but also, like, there's value in experimenting with all this. There's
Of
value in
course,
trying
yeah.
different things, and it can actually improve everything else you do.
I've never painted with oils before, but I have heard of the challenging stories that they bring.
Yeah, no, it's definitely involved. When I did that class on acrylic, I remember being surprised. And I'm like, oh, so what this is very similar to working with gouache or something like that. It's
Yeah.
plastic technically instead of
Yeah.
everything else. We are
No.
coming up on the 45-minute mark. I just wanted to bring up in chat if you have any more questions for Alex. Now is a good time to post them, so we'll have time to see them before the end. But yeah, the you mentioned let's see, acrylic, Copics, uh, all kinds of different styles. Now moving into digital. Uh, is there any style you particularly miss that you haven't done in a while?
With coloring?
With any art, really?
With any art. Honestly, I have had thoughts about trying acrylic painting again because it's been many, many, many years since I did that. Technically my college days, which was literally about a decade ago now. Um, yeah, I kind of miss it, and with my current comic skills, I do kind of wonder what I could paint today. I think it's also because part of it is also because like I want color to look better and better in my comics. So I think there's a part of me who feels like, what if I paint? What if I will that spark something in me? Will that create some kind of like inspirational, something inspirational?
No, absolutely, and I'd be very interested to hear how the differences felt, because I'm sure now that you've done much more comic stuff, your view of layouts is going to be completely different, even if you go abstract.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. One thing I do want to bring up from the chat: are there going to be physical copies available soon for purchase? We are currently kickstarting the physical version of it. The story we've been talking about with Alex is one of 19 stories in the anthology Universal Flaws of Robotics. The link is scrolling across the bottom of the screen and is also in the description of the video. We are currently, I believe, on day 7. We have 17 days left in the campaign. If you wanted to get a physical copy that had all of those in there, that's where you want to check it out. But yeah, it's one of the things that also has been interesting is having you work with our group, which I do want to bring up because
Yeah.
you've been particularly active when it comes to getting us to all hang out, which is extremely nice.
Yeah. So for one, I enjoy y'all's company.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's good for us artists. Okay, maybe I'm just speaking for myself here, but
Yeah.
for me, I really like being around artists. For me, that actually makes me work. It motivates me because I feel like if I just keep to myself and my loud, noisy brain, then I don't think I'm gonna go anywhere with my comics. I'm not going to do anything. I need to speak with other cartoonists and get conversations going, know what we're all doing, and share what's been going on. And we be creative with each other.
Yeah, it is one of the best things working on this. For those who don't know, our anthology publishing collective has a Discord server that everyone who has worked on one of these gets to hang out in and talk shop and talk about the project while we're working on it. And one of the ideas behind that is we wanted to do regular hangouts where everyone could just come and chill and talk about what they're working on. And it is very time consuming to run this thing in general, so I usually get distracted and forget to organize them. And Alex has been great about being like, can we meet this weekend? And just like, yes, put out the call. You can do it. I'm delegating.
Huzzah.
Yeah. But I feel like most of the hangouts for this particular anthology, you were the one to organize, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, of course. No problem.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure.
It's funny because it is one of those things where we started this during lockdown, and it basically became a new place for all of us to hang out when we were all in very separate places. And it's ended up making a type of community that I don't normally see in anthology groups, which has been great to work with.
Wonderful. Yeah, this has just been a wonderful experience to just work with you all. And the group is just amazing. And everyone involved is making amazing work. And I cannot wait for this book to be published and see for myself with actual pages how everyone's work comes out. It's exciting.
Yeah. That's always a moment that never gets old. The first time you get a copy of your book in your hand that you're published in.
It feels so good. Do you smell the pages? Because that's what I do.
No, I never thought to do that, but I do. I end up opening the box, checking one, looking through the whole thing, and just start pacing around my apartment, freaking out. That's how I usually do it.
I always like quickly flip through the pages, and yes, I smell the pages. Get that sweet, like printed aroma.
Yeah,
and
no,
then
I get it.
And then, make some tea and gonna just get lost in the book.
Yeah. And we're very excited for this year just because we are going with a new printer. For those who know the print industry, we're finally going with Print Ninja because we're going to be making enough copies for that. And there are some we're very excited for some of the options that's going to give us. This is going to be a very good looking book.
Ooh.
In fact, one thing I should throw out there, because it only happened a few days ago. We had originally just been doing PDF copies and paperbacks, but because people were being generous enough on the Kickstarter, we crunched some numbers and we decided to unlock hardcover editions early. So if you want, you can get a hardcover of the book too.
Heck yeah, let's go.
Exactly. I was kind of bummed when we originally were putting this together and we're like, well, this is a big enough project. We might not be able to afford hardcovers. So that's a stretch goal. And then people were like, well, we'll donate extra money just because we like you guys. And it's like, okay, that's enough. We can make it happen now.
Amazing. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you, everyone, because, oh, man, this project is going to be great. All right, I think we are getting up to the hour mark, so this might be a good time to start wrapping up. Alex, where can people find you on the internet?
So I do have a website. It's called alexwashburnart.com. Where else? I do have a Discord. I am called Alex_Mander because Charmander is my favorite Pokemon. And I do have an Instagram, which I have not checked in the last couple months. I am Washburn Alexander on Instagram. And I do have an email, alexanderwashburn1@gmail.com. Yeah, that's the gist of it.
Yeah. One other comment popped up that I should have brought up. We talked about this before the stream, and I forgot that. You were asked, how was Japan? Because you just came back from there.
Yeah, I just flew back in a couple days ago, and it was wonderful. It was nice just reconnecting with what is essentially my second home after so long, because the last time I went was 11 years ago. So it's been a while. Used to go there every year or two. Then just, life stuff kept me from going back again for a while.
Yeah. They ran out of manga in Japan for you to buy and bring back.
Oh, no.
And ran out of Emerald Soda and had to restock.
Yes, exactly.
My back. But yeah, you can also find the anthology we've been talking about at tinyurl.com/UFRcomic. I have not been checking it during this, but we are right around the 1/3 funded mark. Last time I looked at it.
Let's go.
I know. I keep waiting for us to click right over 3,000, and I'll be very happy when that happens. So yeah, close. I get to rest when we're funded. So until then, no sleep. But
take care of yourself, Ben.
I'm taking care of myself. This is old hat for me now. But you can also find me at bwhcomics.com. I'm also at bwhcomics on Patreon, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. You can also find my weeb comic Cospain, a weeb comic about cosplaying convention craziness, over at cospaigncomic.com. All right. Well, that's going to go ahead. We do have one more comment. See what that is. Alex is going to start an Emerald Soda black market. Yes.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
You're going to have to draw another little Anubis bot, or maybe like a Horus bot or something. No, a set bot. It's got to be set.
Yes.
Wait. No, I take it back. The one that would be funniest is you do it with Sekhmet, because she has a story about getting drunk. But she's just got a trench coat that's full of
I was thinking trench coat. Yeah, just feel like you want some of these melons.
You want some?
Okay, wait. That sounded pretty questionable.
No.
Damn it.
Yeah, that's a great thing to call it on. I love that.
Yeah.
You want some of these? Yeah, definitely not from Sekhmet. Anyway, that's for the three of you who are big into Egyptian mythology. But yeah, anyway, we are going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Alex, do you have a sign off for when you do stuff online?
Do I what?
Do you have a sign off or anything like that when you do stuff online?
A sign?
Catchphrase or anything like that?
Oh, no.
You don't have to. I always
don't actually. Maybe it's because I haven't really done these very often so far. So yeah, I don't at the moment.
No, I'm a habitual streamer, so I technically have one. I just like to check before I cut people off. But anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Please make sure to check out the Kickstarter. And until next time. Rock on, guys, and never stop drawing.
Bye.
Bye.